everyone. Welcome back to the Nonprofits. So Democrats have decided to fight fire with scripture. And a move that feels overdue and oddly theatrical. Party leaders are now staging prayerful sit-ins and quoting liberation theology to push back against Trump's latest budget assault. Hakeem, Jeffries, and Cory kicked things off with a live stream vigil on Capitol steps, complete with Bible verses and appeals to moral conscience. It's a bold pivot, trying to reclaim the religious narrative from the GOP's long-standing monopoly. But let's be real, everybody. Invoking faith to counteract policies that prey on the vulnerable is a high-stakes gamble. Still, if this strategy shines a light on the hypocrisy of praying with one hand while slashing aid with the other, maybe it's worth the sermon. This story is from RNS by Jack Jenkins on May 7th, 2025. Okay, my wonderful panel. Let's get some opinions. Yo, EJ, I'm going to start with you, my friend. Because I like to mix things up. All right. So, reading your notes, I saw that you were right. That religion has been a tool for control. Obviously, we all know that. This is why we do this damn show. If Democrats are now picking up the same tool, which is basically, putting on a lighter spin on religion, and also they're going to take those risks. What are they actually claiming to oppose? And where's the line between like strategy and, kind of selling out for their faith? So
I'm personally a bit surprised that it took the Democrats this long to use religion as a tool. Because, like you said, the whole reason we do this is that religion is being used as a tool primarily by the right to stomp on the rights of anyone they don't disagree with. So the fact that they haven't, fought fire with scripture, as you said so far, is very surprising. Although I'm personally I'm holding my breath to see if this is a permanent change, because there has been a swap of parties before. The Republicans and the Democrats used to be in the opposite side that they currently are now. The Republicans abolished slavery, and now, well, I'll refrain from making any comments. But I'm very curious as to why they are using religion specifically rather than appealing to an oft maligned voter base of working class people. It's how the current, it's one of the ways that 45, the current president, got into power, by appealing to the working class. So I'm very curious if this is a strategy to try and take back a voter base that is often forgot about, or perhaps this is just a one-off trick. Who knows? Only time will tell.
That is true. I do think that, living here, we do recognize that the majority of our country is religious. We do have an establishment clause, but that's constantly being blurred. Again, just can't stop having sex with each other. But that being said, Stephen, you mentioned that you're feeling a little cynical that the Democrats maybe, baiting some voters with some emotional language. So as I was saying, is this just politics, like I was mentioning before, or is there's an undermining of authenticity for the cause? Is the moral majority survive? Can the moral majority survive? When it's weirded out and worded out so statistically. It's a weird thing where we can have political language, but they're also, religion keeps being bedfellows with it.
Yeah, I hear this tension that you are talking about. Absolutely. I am cynical about whether how deep this goes, but that's never changed, and that's never going to change. There are always going to be people who want to be led, who maybe need to be led. Can we use that verbiage? And I don't know. I don't want to be elitist. I don't want to say, oh, well, these sheep, they need a shepherd. but we need to be able to meet people where they're at. And just because someone is inclined to go with the flow right now, that doesn't mean that they're always going to be that way. So let's meet those folks where they're at and find a way to hit them where they're at. I think we can do that without watering down, without losing the message. And ultimately, for me, it's about the end result. That's what I'm the most focused on. Like, even if we don't agree on why we're doing this or how to get there, the fact that we want to get there, I think that can be powerful. Whether if that means that we need to make space for people to have progressive religious views, if that means that they're not going to be shitheads, and then maybe one day they'll have an even more evolved perspective on the world that doesn't rely on the supernatural, I'm there for it. But let's meet people where they're at.
Yeah, and I do agree with a lot of that, and it's very tricky when you're trying to appeal to, especially in the United States where most people are religious. But Cindy, you kind of pointed out that white and non-white Catholics have shifted towards Trump since 2016, and do you think the Democrats should be really focused on the religious side of things, or do you think they should be focusing more on secular movements? Not necessarily like moving away from religion, but more secular causes and things that people are more concerned about, like with social justice and like with the economy.
Well, I'm a little bit conflicted here because on one hand, I think that from my perspective, outside the U.S., it seems like the Democrats are so lost that they're trying everything they can. They throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. They have no idea how to deal with the MAGA movement, even after 10 years. And so I'm wondering why the religious people, why now? And Christofascists are unlikely to be swayed by anything the Democrats will tell them. And so do they think the religious left will help them in any way? So while I was thinking about this, I looked it up and I found this article that will be in the description of the video, put by the amazing people who are not behind the camera today. And in this article, there's a quote. It says, between 2016 and 2024, Trump gained 7 points with white Catholics and 16 points with non-white Catholics. And that's unbelievable. And sure, we can say that there are still some votes to be taken there in the religious area, but aren't there bigger demographics that need to be convinced? The middle class, union workers, non-theist or secular people. In our article, Cory Booker says, this is a moral moment. It's not left or right, it's right or wrong. And I think that's stupid, because I don't believe there's a single person now in the US or maybe in the entire world that's still receptive to this argument. The president criminality has been proven again and again and again. Everyone knows who he is. His character doesn't matter to anyone right now. Nobody votes for him because of his character, and nobody votes against him because of his character. It's because of his policies. It's because of everything he does. So no one votes on morality anymore in this country. So appealing to religious people to try to bring back the moral argument from the Christofascists, I don't think it's going to work.
So I'm of two minds as someone that lives here. I do recognize the importance of, within my particular country, to appeal to religious voters. Even if you're, liberally minded, you're probably going to be some sort of religion colored in some way or another. Though evangelical Christianity is the loudest, it is not the majority. There's a lot more moderate Christians and believers that live in the United States. But the thing is, though, is that like nobody's really thinking about those people. The Democrats are. But the problem is that there's this tide that morality must be religious. And I don't think it, obviously, I'm an atheist. I don't agree with that. I think that your actions show how you vote and how you treat other people shows where your morals are. Not, if you own a Bible or not, and if you go to church. And we all recognize that, obviously. I'm preaching to the proverbial choir. But that being said, I'm going to shift this over to EJ. So in your notes, I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit, that you brought up the working class. And I'm 100% with you on this, that faith outreach won't mean much if people can't afford rent. Like, it's really great if you believe in Jesus. Awesome. Also, how are you going to put food on my table? How am I going to pay rent? How am I going to take care of my kids? So if the Democrats actually regain some trust to those voters, maybe they shouldn't pay so much about pandering and praying circles and more on policy.
I'm with you on that. I do think that it's a step in the right direction. However, I do agree with Cindy in that when you're dealing with Christo fascists, it's not you shouldn't be too worried about morality, because no one goes full slide into fascism while screaming, think about the kids. Maybe this time we've been proven wrong on that front, but the fact that the Democrats aren't thinking specifically about the working class is, I think, their biggest downfall, because the biggest lie, the biggest falsehood that was portrayed in the elections is that the current administration would think specifically about the lower and working class. Their problems were his problems. And I feel like the fact a lot of them have been betrayed or feel betrayed could be a very good jumping off point for the Democrats to go, hey, we care, come on. Or perhaps a third party could spring up out of nowhere and go, hey, maybe give us a try. It's rare. It's only happened once in US history, but maybe. I can see Stephen give a bit of a disapproving look.
I mean, okay, as someone that lives here, like I'm always constantly surprised because you only have so much influence, and you tend to surround yourself with people that think like you. Like all my friends are progressive, atheists, pagans, really cool people, queer, people, all the fun people. But then I forget there's people outside of my bubble. And then when you find out, hey, I'm kind of okay voting for someone that has 27 sexual assault allegations against him, and you're just kind of like, wow, that's interesting. So on Sydney's point, yeah, it gets a little disheartening, and when you have those things happen. So but the thing is, so Stephen, you pointed out that moral influence is inevitable. So how those of us that actually care about these things compete in this space, and can us as humanists can that message ever really hit emotionally hard enough over scripture that even those that, the alignment's the same, you care about other human beings, you care for what's right, can we do that without faith being involved?
Yeah, well, I think humanism can hit just as hard as these religious ideas, but it has to speak to deeper needs. It needs to speak to longing. It needs to speak to hearts, not just logic. Our brains are responsible for a lot of our development and where we've arrived as a species. But there's that heart that beats behind it, right? So if we want secular ethics to compete, we have to tell better stories, right? Not just smarter ones. And when you think about it, like religion has been around for thousands of years now, and they've really perfected how to speak to people on those levels when they didn't have, scientific processes and those parts of our ways of thinking developed. So they really appeal to those parts of the brain. And it's good that we are able to use these different parts of our brains. But I think, if we want to compete on that level, it's just a matter of going deeper and disconnecting from, that one way of thinking and getting in touch with what made what is it that gives religion its power, and how can we not rebrand it, but convert it into something that is more in line with our modern world.
So it's kind of something to cook my noodle. So, but like to kind of pick off of that, like, Sydney, you kind of mentioned, kind of pick off what Stephen just said about like, Booker's kind of futility at the right versus wrong, framing. So if morality, as you said before, like people aren't voting by their morals anymore, they're kind of voting by policy, even though if you look at, the Orange Chick Gibbons policies, they suck. Does that messaging work? And is there a way to speak to the urgency and justice without leaning into moral theater? Because if we're going to talk about policy, let's talk about like how these policies are damaging, but how do you do that if a lot of framework within not only the Republican Party, but like in the Democratic Party, there's a lot of moral framing that goes on when we're talking about policy.
I don't know. I don't know how you can do that, because I maybe it's because I see every problem in the US with the secular and scientific view. It's because like if you take the abortion issue, then to me the religion aspect of it is moot, because it doesn't mean anything regarding to the science. So I don't see how what else you can bring from religion except from morality, because even if the left is trying to build like a religion identity in the US and trying to create a movement thanks to this, maybe that's the only way I see that being useful.
I don't know the answer. I don't. I'm sorry. As someone that lives here, I don't know the fucking answer, man. So I'm trying like as someone that lives in a very secular, scientific, atheist worldview, where I thought up to, a few months ago that I could, kind of exist and be okay with it. Things are changing. It's great. Anyway, so EJ, you kind of in your notes asked, like, is this tonal shift? Is this tonal shift? Is it something that's actually happening? Is it a blip? What do you think would actually be a shift, like a real one? And what would you say if what would make you think that we were actually learning something for that tonal shift to happen rather than, just pandering?
I think actual positive affirmative action that doesn't have an ingrained benefit to the people who are giving it would be, to me at least, a sign of a real shift. So, for example, if instead of oh, let's talk about how much we love queer people, because a lot of the people that we want to pander to in the queer community have a bit of money, they're going to college, they all have quite big social circles. Let's pander to them because it might be a good way to get votes. Instead, maybe they take a stand for something that might not be entirely popular, i.e. a current conflict or human rights violations that aren't being necessarily talked about or properly discussed, and push it even if it might harm some people in the party, or it might, in the long run, might not be the best thing for the US, but maybe the best thing for humanity. A lot of governments have done that in the past, and I think it's time that the US start to take on that mantle as well. With great power comes great responsibility.
I mean, when basic human rights are being taken away in the place that I live, like the queer issue isn't really, even as a queer person, isn't my top priority right now when everybody's being affected by policies that were for marginalized people. And that's kind of like trickling out, because that's what happens, guys. So if you do not want to see the trickle out effect and get more educated on things that are happening, please subscribe, like, ring some bells, and click on another video to watch from the nonprofits. And we will see you all here next week. Bye.